Let's jump straight in today. Our first source looks at conserving India's dugongs and their seagrass meadows. You might know the dugong as the farmer of the sea.
That's right. It's a great nickname. If you're picturing one, think sort of portly, maybe a cross between a seal and a whale. Uses its flippers in warm, shallow waters.
And they're unique in India, aren't they? The only herbivorous marine mammal there.
Exactly. And they really depend on seagrass. They don't just graze the tops, they actually root around for the rhizomes, the stems.
And that digging stirs up the silt, hence the farmer nickname. It's quite a process, apparently, because seagrass isn't super nutritious, so they need huge amounts.
Absolutely. Key spots for them in India are the Andaman and Nicobar Islands, Gulf of Mannar, Palk Bay, and the Gulf of Kutch.
But even with these spots, their numbers are worryingly low.
Very much so. Globally, they're listed as vulnerable, but in India, it's regionally endangered. Estimates are possibly down to around 200 individuals. Their range has shrunk too.
And their biology doesn't help, does it? They mature late, maybe 9 or 10 years old.
And they only calve every 3 to 5 years. So their potential population growth is tiny, maybe 5% a year maximum.
Makes them super sensitive to any problems.
And the problems are, well, numerous. Coastal development is a big one, eating into their habitat. Then you've got pollution, agricultural runoff, sewage, industrial waste. Climate change is hitting the seagrass itself.
And fishing must be a major issue, too.
Definitely. Traditional methods are being replaced by mechanized fishing. Things like gill nets, trawl nets. Dugongs get accidentally caught.
And being mammals, they need to surface to breathe, so entanglement often means drowning.
Precisely. And many deaths likely go unreported. Plus, they risk boat collisions when they rest near the surface. And sadly, despite legal protection, some illegal hunting still happens.
It sounds quite grim. And because they're shy, awareness isn't high either.
True, but there are conservation efforts. India is part of international agreements, like the CMS Dugong since 2008.
And the big news was that reserve in Tamil Nadu, right?
Yes. India's first Dugong Conservation Reserve in Palk Bay, set up in 2022. It's over 448 square kilometers. It's their last real stronghold. And critically, it has intact seagrass beds. That was based on solid research from groups like OMCR Foundation and WII.
So what are the proposed solutions moving forward? Protecting seagrass seems key.
It is. Protecting and restoring it, mapping, monitoring, maybe getting local communities, especially fishers, involved in stewardship.
And tackling the fishing gear issue.
Yeah, regulating harmful methods like gill nets or bottom trawling in their habitats is vital. Promoting sustainable techniques, maybe even alternative livelihoods like carefully managed dugong-friendly ecotourism, that could help with monitoring too.
Increasing awareness and getting communities involved sounds crucial as well. Training fishers to report sightings or strandings for rescue efforts.
And boosting the research side, more funding, long-term studies, maybe using citizen science, traditional knowledge, even tech like tagging or drones.
And just briefly, why is seagrass itself so important? It's not seaweed, right?
Correct. It's an underwater flowering plant. It forms these meadow ecosystems that stabilize the seafloor, support fisheries, shelter marine life, and they're amazing carbon sinks. India's documented beds capture a huge amount of CO2.
So saving the dugong really means saving this whole vital ecosystem.
Exactly. It's all connected.
Okay, let's shift gears from the ocean to the classroom. Our next source tackles experiential learning. It starts off quite critical of the current system.
It really does. It talks about the exam-centric approach where teaching is mainly about, transferring information.
And students end up focusing on lower-order thinking skills, just recalling facts, basic understanding, enough to pass the test.
But we need more than that, don't we? We need critical thinking, problem-solving skills. That means analysis, evaluation, creating things, comparing, inventing, higher order stuff.
And that's where this idea of experiential learning comes in.
Right. The philosophy is essentially learning by doing. The focus shifts from just the outcome, the right answer, to the process, how you learn and figure things out. It's seen as this continuous cycle.
The source mentions David Kolb's theory, building on earlier work. The core idea is growth through interacting with the environment.
Kolb outlines a cycle. It starts with a concrete experience. You actually do something, engage your senses.
Okay, hands-on stuff.
Then comes reflective observation. You think about that experience, what happened, did anything surprise you? Maybe something didn't fit what you already thought, cognitive dissonance.
As you process it.
Exactly, which leads to abstract conceptualization. You try to make sense of it, rationalize it, maybe update your ideas or theories based on what you observed.
Forming new understanding.
And finally, active experimentation. You take that new understanding and try it out, act on it, solve a problem, test your new hypothesis.
Which then leads to another experience, and the cycle repeats.
Precisely. It's iterative.
And how does this look in practice? The source mentions things like experiments.
Yeah, inquiry-based experiments, teamwork, interactive games, group discussions, role-playing, arts and crafts, even real-world immersions like field trips or outdoor learning. Technology and simulations fit in here too.
The flipped classroom gets mentioned as a prime example.
It is. Students get the basic material at home, maybe through videos or readings. Then class time is for applying it, problem-solving, discussions, with the teacher guiding, not just lecturing. It makes students more responsible for their learning.
Sounds really positive for developing those deeper skills. But there are critiques.
Oh, yes. The source acknowledges challenges. Sometimes it can isolate the learning from the broader context, peers, family, culture.
Logistically, it must be harder to implement, too.
Definitely. It needs resources, teacher training, materials. It can be a logistical challenge, especially on a large scale. And you can't just assume all students are ready for that kind of self-directed learning. It's not a one-size-fits-all fix.
So it's not about ditching everything else, but maybe blending it in.
Exactly. Integrating these approaches into existing systems can create a more holistic education, cater to different learning styles, and importantly, build those higher-order thinking skills we need.
Developing capability, not just knowledge recall.
That's the goal.
All right, let's turn to the weather. Our third source looks at something interesting, the early onset of the monsoon in India this year. It arrived over Kerala on May 24th.
Yeah, that's about a week ahead of the usual June 1st date, and the source notes it's the earliest it's been in 16 years. The last time was May 23rd, 2009.
So the big question the source asks is, why so early this year?
And the short answer provided is, well, we don't really know for sure. Predicting the exact onset is still incredibly challenging.
It's kind of surprising, isn't it, with all the modeling and forecasting we have?
It is. There's no complete consensus on exactly what triggers the onset each year. Even big climate patterns like El Niño or La Niña don't reliably predict the date it will arrive. Scientists watch things like the monsoon trough movement, but as the source says, many players still tinker.
And there's this background trend mentioned, right? A slight delay in onset since the 70s.
Yes, a reported systematic delay of a few days on average. The cause isn't fully understood, could be a natural cycle, a regime shift, or linked somehow to global warming. So having a very early year like this really stands out against that longer-term picture. It highlights the variability.
How does this year, 2025, compare to that last early onset in 2009?
There are differences. 2009 was globally cooler than now, maybe 0.5 degrees C above pre-industrial levels, and it was a mild El Niño year. 2025 is much warmer, over 1.2 degrees C, coming off record heat, a strong 2023 El Niño, and what the source calls a failed 2024 La Niña with unusual ocean temperatures.
Are there other factors that can influence the timing, like cyclones?
Potentially, yes. The source mentions that more late-season cyclones may be linked to things like Arctic warming or wind shifts in the Arabian Sea, could theoretically pull the monsoon trough forward. Conversely, typhoons in the Pacific can sometimes draw moisture away and cause delays.
So it's a real mix of factors.
A complex interplay of natural variability and these local and remote drivers. That's what makes precise onset predictions so tough. And, as the source points out, predicting the onset date isn't even the whole story. Predicting the total rainfall across the season is another huge challenge.
Does an early start mean a good monsoon? I seem to remember 2009 wasn't great.
You're right to be cautious. The source explicitly states that early arrival doesn't guarantee abundant rain. 2009 actually ended up being a severe drought year despite the early start. However, a late arrival, more than 2 weeks late, almost always signals a deficit.
So will 2025 be like 2009?
The current forecasts suggest maybe not. 2009 transitioned towards La Niña later in the year. Right now, forecasts lean towards neutral conditions for El Niño and the Indian Ocean dipole. But some indicators do hint an El Niño might evolve this summer. Whether that's linked to the early onset is unclear. It's a wait-and-see situation.
The source also briefly mentions that rainfall patterns themselves seem to be changing, more erratic distribution, floods and droughts, shifts in withdrawal.
Yes, those broader changes add another layer of complexity.
So ultimately, No clear answer for why this year was early or any specific year, really.
Not a simple one, no. We're slowly getting better insights, but predicting the monsoon's nuances remains a major scientific frontier.
Okay, from weather systems to international partnerships. Our next source marks a milestone. 25 years of strategic partnership between Germany and India.
That's right, a silver jubilee. The source emphasizes how this relationship has evolved and grown, underpinned by consistent political commitment from Germany, including a specific focus on India's strategy.
And it breaks the partnership down into 4 pillars, which seems helpful. Peace, prosperity, people, and the future of the planet. Let's start with peace.
On that front, they share a vision for a stable, rules-based world. They have these unique, high-level government consultations that really cement ties. Defense cooperation is growing to joint military exercises like Tarang Shakti, German Navy ships visiting Indian ports. It shows the Indo-Pacific is firmly on Germany's strategic map now.
And the expectation is for even closer ties there.
Yes, closer strategic cooperation and links between their defense industries.
Okay, pillar 2, prosperity. How is that defined?
Broadly, not just GDP, but enabling people to flourish, having meaningful jobs. The scale is significant. About 2,000 German companies are active in India, creating over 750,000 jobs.
The source mentions the Delhi-Meerut rail project.
Yeah, with young Indians operating the trains in Deutsche Bahn uniforms, a very visible example. And it's not just one way. Indian companies are growing in Germany, too, getting integrated into high-tech supply chains, which builds trust, especially when global trade feels disrupted.
Any mention of trade deals?
Potential for a tangible EU-India free trade agreement is noted, plus ongoing science and tech cooperation, joint research, Indian researchers and German institutions, turning environmental challenges into business cases even.
Then there's the people pillar. This sounds like the real connective tissue.
Absolutely. The Indian community in Germany is booming. Over 50,000 Indian students there, now the largest foreign student group at German universities.
And they contribute significantly whether they stay or return.
Exactly. They study, work, gain experience. The source highlights how young Indians share their lives online, adapting and contributing to German society and economy. Learning German is stressed as key.
But it also calls for more flow in the other direction.
Yes, a need for more Germans to study or work in India, really understand the country, its languages, maybe start businesses there. Investing in the youth on both sides is seen as vital for the partnership's future momentum.
And the final pillar, future of the planet. Sounds critical.
Called one of the most important. This centers on the Indo-German Green and Sustainable Development Partnership, the GSDP. Germany's made a huge commitment, $10 billion in preferential loans and grants over 10 years, starting from 2022.
Wow, that's substantial. What areas does it cover?
Things like renewables, biodiversity, large-scale smart city projects. Private sector cooperation is involved too. The source gives an example of visiting renewable projects in Gujarat, where German companies are making wind turbine blades. German tech helping India's energy transition and economy.
So it sounds like a very broad and deep relationship after 25 years.
It does. The source concludes with the German ambassador's perspective, having served there twice, remarking on India's incredible development and the partnership's growth, expressing real optimism. It feels like a genuinely strong, multi-layered connection.
Covering everything from defense to green energy.
A truly strategic partnership.
Now for something quite different, a source describing what sounds like a major clash. Harvard battles Trump. The academic freedom war, framed as David versus Goliath.
It certainly depicts a serious conflict. It started escalating significantly when the Department of Homeland Security, DHS, declared on May 22nd its intention to stop Harvard from enrolling international students.
And Harvard sued immediately.
Yes, calling it a blatant violation. A federal judge has actually put a temporary block on that DHS decision for now.
The source provides context, mentioning Trump's history of criticizing elite universities.
Right, claiming they promote ideologies he disagrees with, pledging to cut endowments, wanting to reclaim them from the radical left. Vice President Vance is even quoted calling universities the enemy.
And this isn't the first time this kind of pressure has been applied recently.
Apparently not. The source mentions that in mid-March, the administration pulled $400 million from Columbia after making demands, which Columbia reportedly complied with. Harvard, with its huge $52 billion endowment, refused to fold when similar demands were made.
What were those demands specifically?
Made in April, they included things like restricting faculty and student influence, making Harvard report international student conduct violations directly to the government, and even designating an outside party to ensure viewpoint diversity in departments.
And Harvard's president pushed back strongly.
President Alan Garber reportedly said complying would endanger the university's core values and essentially give the government control.
So after Harvard refused, the administration took further action.
Yes. They froze $2.26 billion in multi-year grants, a loss of about $450 million for Harvard right away. There were threats to its tax-exempt status, and legislation to tax endowments actually passed the House. That's when Harvard broadened its lawsuit.
What was the DHS justification for trying to block international students?
Their May 22nd statement claimed Harvard leadership had created an unsafe environment by allowing anti-American pro-terrorist agitators, and alleged that international students were a large part of this group.
And Harvard's response?
They argued the administration is using international students, about 6 days and 800 of them, 27% of the student body, as pawns in a campaign of retribution. They highlighted the disruption this causes, potentially requiring them to rescind admissions offers.
How does the government have the power to do this?
Through DHS's Student and Exchange Visitor Program, SEVP, institutions need certification from this program to accept international students, so the government controls that certification process.
So it's a significant point of leverage.
It is. The source concludes this is a major battle over the definition of academic freedom, which it admits is an abstract concept and could set precedents for government-university relations globally. But it also notes a shadowy region likely remains for future conflicts. The source itself aims for neutrality, just reporting the actions and stated positions of both sides.
A complex situation with potentially far-reaching implications for higher education.
Definitely raises fundamental questions about institutional autonomy and government oversight.
Okay, for our final source, we're looking at a growing health issue in India, the urban overnutrition crisis. It kicks off with a pretty shocking statistic from Hyderabad.
It really does. A study of IT employees there found 84% had fatty liver disease, MAFLD, and 71% were obese. That's presented as a sign of a much wider emerging crisis in urban centers.
And what are the drivers identified?
Things often linked to demanding urban jobs, especially in tech. Chronic stress, high salt intake, poor sleep patterns, sedentary routines, even things like free, often unhealthy, snacks provided at workplaces contribute.
It's described as a paradoxical nutritional landscape for India, right?
Exactly. Undernutrition is still a major concern in many parts of the country, but in cities, overnutrition, overweight, and obesity is rapidly escalating. India apparently ranked second globally in prevalence back in 2021. These IT corridors are highlighted as hotspots for this silent metabolic crisis.
And this is directly linked to NCD's non-communicable diseases.
Yes. NCDs caused about 74% of global deaths in 2019, and they hit lower and middle-income countries like India particularly hard. Worryingly, they're increasingly common among the most economically active age groups, which threatens development goals like the 2030 SDG targets for reducing premature NCD mortality.
The source uses data from Tamil Nadu as an example.
Right. The STEP survey from 2023-24. Over 65% of deaths in Chennai were due to NCDs. Alarming low rates of blood pressure and glycemic control were found, even among people getting treatment, especially younger adults aged 18-44. High rates of overweight obesity, poor fruit-veg intake, and lack of physical activity were common.
Tamil Nadu has programs, but the source points to a big challenge.
Yes, initiatives like Makalai Thedimaruthuvam and workplace screenings exist, but the unchecked growth of fast food outlets is seen as a major obstacle.
Does national data back this up?
It seems so. NFHS 5 data shows obesity climbing with both age and wealth. The 1859 age bracket, the core workforce, is particularly vulnerable to early onset NCDs, often linked to relying on ultra-processed foods and those other lifestyle factors.
Are there projections for the future?
Yes. Citing a Lancet article, the source suggests India's overweight obese adult population could reach 450 million by 2050. That's up from 180 million in 2021. Childhood obesity is also a massive concern, a huge surge in recent decades projected to climb sharply again.
The source seems to argue that focusing only on individual awareness isn't enough.
Very strongly. It argues that regulators, food producers, and policymakers have a greater responsibility because the market is just saturated with unhealthy options. The argument is that solutions need to go beyond just telling people to eat better and actually influence what food gets made and sold.
What about current efforts, like from the FSSAI?
Their Eat Right India movement is mentioned, promoting safe, healthy food, hygiene ratings, campaigns like Asia Sathodakam, a little less from today. There is also the push for clear labeling of foods high in fat, salt, sugar, HFSS, and the ongoing debate about the proposed Health Star rating system. The Supreme Court has even directed FSSAI to get specific scientific advice on food safety and labeling.
But the call is for more than just labels and campaigns.
Yes, for stricter enforcement and broader coordination across different sectors. Regulation needs teeth, extending beyond just messaging to actually shape what the industry produces and markets.
Is there an example of a country doing this effectively?
The Saudi Arabian model is presented as compelling. Their Vision 2030 embeds NCD prevention in national policy. They've enforced calorie labeling, put excise taxes on sugary drinks, 50%, and energy drinks, 100%, set sodium limits, eliminated trans fats. The source credits its success to coherence across health, regulation, industry, and public engagement.
So the context is these booming Indian cities, Bengaluru, Hyderabad, Pune, Chennai economic engines, where changing work patterns increase demand for convenient, often unhealthy food.
Exactly. Flexible hours, late nights, food delivery. It's often nutrient-poor food. And the risk extends way beyond just IT professionals.
The main message seems to be a need for systemic action, particularly from regulators targeting the food industry.
That's the core argument. Action, not just awareness. Taxing unhealthy foods is even floated as a logical next step, given India's history with using taxes for public health goals.
A really complex issue tied into urban development lifestyles and policy.
Definitely. It shows the need for a multi-pronged approach to tackle this growing public health challenge.
Thank you for listening. You can give suggestions by contacting on Twitter handle given in the episode description. We are always eager to hear what our listeners want to be informed about.